Maybe. Probably
there
not, though. Oh, wow.
Vaguely. Okay.
I could not figure that out. However, you get to read this.
Hooray. Well, hello and welcome to A Little Too Quiet, the Ferndale Library podcast brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. I'm Mary Graham.
I'm Jeff.
That's
Hello.
Jeff.
I just
right there.
jumped into the intro.
You did.
Oh my gosh, too excited.
Well, and I mean, how do we even know that it's the intro because we didn't have an extended
I know we didn't riff.
It's okay.
I mean, what if folks really want to know what our little riffing patter was? It's about sewing and buttons and
electricians,
cats.
You know,
always
with the cats.
Always is about cats.
Yep.
But what are we here today to talk about?
Today, we're talking about our to be read lists, our TBRs.
TBR.
It's a new year, which I don't know, maybe is part of why I feel so sleepy. I'm like, oh man.
What day is it?
What day is it?
What is time?
What is time?
Yeah.
How much does a new year matter? I think the answer is it only matters as much as you want it to. But many people do like to spend the end of the year reviewing what they read, which we did. And so this is the flip side of that coin. What are we looking forward to reading in the coming year?
To be read, TBR. If you're a longtime listener to this podcast, you maybe a couple months ago heard us talk about books we did not finish. If you get deeper and deeper out there into book social media, book talk, or bookstagram, or what have you, you will see people saying DNF for did not finish, or TBR for to be read. Mm-hmm. So, listener, we're keeping you hip if you weren't in, but now you know.
In.
Now you know, and I'm sure you have a TBR at home as well.
Well, actually, Jeff, I wanted to ask you this. Do you keep an actual list? Because all of my friends know that when I say, oh, cool, I'll add it to the list, like famously that means it's not happening.
Oh, it's just maybe going in your brain?
It's going in my brain. The list isn't real, and things only get crossed off the list when like Venus, like the transit of Venus and the rest of the stars align and stuff like that.
The answer is yes, I do keep a list.
You keep an actual list, okay.
And that's because, I have a spreadsheet, actually.
I have a spreadsheet for tracking what I have read, but I realized in college that I find a list of a TBR too stressful, because then it feels like homework.
Sure.
And I feel overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. So I do have a shelf on my bookshelves at home that are all books I haven't read yet.
Okay.
So it's kind of a one-stop for, I want something new. Just go over to the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
But so many times I'll just pass something on the shelf here while I'm at work and go, ooh. And
I can't relate to that because there's a saying that goes around for people who go into the writing world or the journalism world after college. Mm-hmm. And it basically, the saying is some kind of iteration of, you're basically just getting a job where you now have weekly homework.
And you'll notice I didn't go in.
Yes, indeed. So when I've been in homework mode since college because I've had deadline. So having a list of things that I have coming up is my bread and butter.
Right, of course.
I'm like, let's do it.
Of course.
Well, if you don't have a list, you must at least have a couple titles. You have a sticky note.
I have a sticky note because I have thought about, okay, what's living on my shelf that I've been saying, when I get around to that for ages, or what books do my friends bother me about. So I've got 3 titles for you. Possibly more.
Okay.
I've cheated a little bit on the third. So the first is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, who under the name S.A. Chakraborty wrote the City of Brass trilogy.
Okay, yeah.
That people might be familiar with. Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi came out either early last year, like a couple years ago at this point. And actually it was a book I checked out from here at work, got about 50 pages in and went, this is so amazing, I've got to own it.
Excellent.
So gave it back, bought it, never actually read it because it's one of those books that I can tell I just want to sit down for a weekend and just block everything out. It is set in the Middle Ages. The protagonist is a woman pirate in her mid-40s. She's got a daughter, and it is a come out of retirement for one last job kind of story.
Love it.
And I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to scratch a kind of historical adventure itch that I've really been missing recently. And one of my goals this year is to read a little more literary fiction. Obviously, I read a lot of children's books for my job. It's fabulous.
Fantasy, romance.
And I read that is mostly what I read last year. And so I would like to read more adult fiction.
Yeah.
But my second title is a YA title.
Okay.
And that is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan.
Okay.
Which again has been out for several years now. Also a recommendation from a friend who has been continuously poking me about it. Maya, if you're listening, it's all your fault. I promise I'm going to read it soon. And it is about a kid. It starts out as kind of your typical Portal fantasy, you know, kid gets taken across the wall to go to magic school. Except this kid's name is Elliot. He is a little prickly pear of a person, and he is deeply unimpressed by this magical world. And he goes to a school where you either take like the warrior track or the diplomacy track, but everyone thinks the diplomats are kind of lame. But Elliot is like, war is stupid. Obviously, I'm gonna be a diplomat. But it's again one of those books I got 50 pages into, went, this is so good. And I think I'm lying to myself, Jeff. I think I need to read more books in small spurts of time.
Is it giving Eustace Dawntrudder vibes as far as his disposition?
A little bit. He is not as horrid as he's not mean. He's just annoyed.
Okay.
And annoying. But it follows him and the two best friends that he makes almost against his own will over several years of magic school. So very excited about that. And then I want to read another doorstopper this year. Okay. It's been a couple years since I read a proper doorstopper in a novel. I'm hoping maybe even I'll get on a roll and I'll read several. So this is a case of one of them is going to have to call to me.
Yes.
But I'm thinking Moby Dick.
Okay.
Or Brothers Karamazov.
Great. Both
or
great.
This one is more modern, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Okay, yes.
All of which I own, all of which I've started, all of which I've gone, oh, I love this. All of which I have not finished.
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, if you like footnotes.
I do love a footnote.
Anything else, or did you fit them all in?
Those are the sort of three big doorstoppers I'm considering. Anna Karenina, but that's a little further down the list.
Okay. I'll just say that the book I have on my list is called Private Rites. I wonder if we'll be able to hear Roddy. Roddy? Oh, wait. Roddy?
Yes.
Yes! You're
Roddy.
here! Hi.
Roddy, you made it again. How are you?
I am doing so well.
Oh.
And I'm so delighted to hear both of your voices.
Longtime listener, many times caller, Roddy Brown. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Roddy.
So much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Roddy, I was just talking about a book I'm looking forward to. It's called Private Rites by Julia Armfield. And it's because I loved her previous work. It's called Our Wives Under the Sea. I was a really big fan of that book. However, I'm reading that this book, Private Rites, is, quote, a speculative reimagining of King Lear centering three sisters navigating queer love and loss in a drowning world. Sign me up.
What? That sounds amazing.
Sign me up. Julia Armfield, Private Rites. Roddy, TBR time. Mary Graham and I were talking about whether or not we keep physical or even just digital cloud lists.
Yeah, when we say, the to be read list, Roddy, do you keep an actual list? Because Jeff, unsurprisingly, has a whole spreadsheet. I have a vague notion of things in my head because checking things off an actual reading to-do list stresses me out.
Yeah.
So I am like a magnet that is pulled towards the next thing.
I am a very messy combination of both of you, where I have a very nebulous sort of, these are things that I would like to read in the future list, because I do like to use apps like Storygraph. So I will put like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me put it on my to read pile, and then I'll forget about it. But then I do have very specific books that I'm just like, I am going to track everything about this book from the minute I hear about it until its actual release day. So, it's both. There are some things where I will come upon something like from years ago that I was like, oh yeah, I totally meant to read that. and then I just never got around to it, even though I did have it written down somewhere. But I would like to see this spreadsheet, Jeff. So if you have like a formula worked out for it or something, and you wanted to share that, I would totally take it because that sounds like fun.
Okay.
But yeah. I do have a question that I probably should have texted first. Are we just talking about books that are supposed to be coming out?
No, every single book that I put on my list has been out for literal years.
Oh, no. Mary Graham had a couple of books, from
the 19th century.
Yeah, a couple
on my TBR.
Brand new, cutting edge, hot off the presses.
Door stoppers.
Yeah.
I love this so much. Okay, great. This makes me so very happy. Yeah, I do have some brand new books though. Am I just going to toss them out there to you guys?
Oh yeah, tell us what you got on the docket.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first up is Oathbound, which is the third book in the Legendborn cycle by Tracy Denon.
Wow.
That's one of the first series you ever told me about when we became friends. This is how deep this goes.
This lore, this is intrinsically tied to my development as a person in my adult years. The third book is coming out this year, finally. There have been no arcs for this book anywhere. I have scoured the web to try to see if I can get my hands on an advanced reader copy. They do not exist. So when this book comes out, it will be my personality pretty much probably for the rest of the year, to be completely honest with you. You cannot fathom how excited I am about this book.
Do you think the publicists were like, we don't need advanced reader copies. We've already got them hooked. We've already got Roddy Brown wrapped around our little finger.
No, quite literally. I think that they knew that if they allowed advanced reader copies out into the wild, it would do something to the space-time continuum. And they were just like, we're just going to keep this close to the chest until this book is out. They were like, we don't need it. We quite literally don't need it. So I respect them for that, as much as it pains me to say. I wish it could have been me, but if it's no one, then I'm fine with that. But if it was someone other than me, I would be very salty about it. So there's that.
The series title again?
Oh, Legendborn. The Legendborn cycle.
Yes. So we're going with cycle?
Yes, that's what they're officially calling it.
To give it an indeterminate end?
I hope that book 3 is the end, because here's the thing.
Roddy.
In my personal opinion, 2 books is the perfect amount of books to tell a story.
Yes.
3 is good too.
Yes.
We know that the trilogy exists within legend as being the sort of end-all be-all of how to tell the story. When you try to sell me on a quartet, we have a problem.
Yep.
So I personally need this book series trilogy. I need it to end at number 3.
Okay. Because
that's when the story starts to get a little messy too.
Mm-hmm.
You lose the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
After number 3.
Yeah.
So
it's like a show that goes 399 episodes.
Yes.
I was told, Mary Graham, that Bleach is currently at episode 399, and I don't know if Roddy's counting. Okay, go ahead, Roddy. What?
Really?
Yeah.
What's the plan for 400? We have to talk, Jeff. I'm so sorry.
We do.
My brain is all over the place. This is my first day back at being human after the holidays, so there's a lot going on. Emily Wilde.
Yes.
That is also a trilogy. The third book is coming out this year. It is called Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. And I am so excited for that third book. I'm not going to lie. The second book was a little rough at certain points, but then I got back into it because honestly, I was reading it when I was in a really nasty reading slump. So I kind of feel like I need to revisit it. But overall, cozy fantasy. Absolutely love it. There is a love story, but the love story is not the point. And I just have a great time every time I read those books. So the third one is coming out this year.
So I started reading the first Emily Wilde book while I was recovering from surgery. And as it happens, my post-surgery brain did not want books. It just wanted a lot of visual media. So I haven't finished it yet, and was in the middle of a bit of a reading slump myself, but I was having a grand old time. I am excited to finish the first book and to check out the second one before the third one comes out. again, I like prickly characters. Right.
Yes.
Before you hopped on the call, I was mentioning one of my books on my TBR this year is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is also a fantasy with a character who is just like Scar in The Lion King. I'm surrounded by idiots. And what is your whole problem? Just what is wrong with you? And sometimes it is fun to read about a character being annoyed.
Yes.
And I find the love interest in Emily Wilde very charming. Mostly because this woman is constantly so over all of his crap. And he's like, wow, isn't she the very best?
Yes. And that is my favorite dynamic for a romantic pairing.
Oh my God. I would so be that guy.
Boy, do I have an opera recommendation then. 'Cause I'm obsessed with that dynamic right now too, and I can't stop listening to Marriage of Figaro. Roddy, we have to have you on. We're doing Jeff, you can cut this if you want.
Oh no, we can let people know what's coming.
There's an opera episode coming down the pipe.
Really?
Yeah, we gotta get you on for
I will actually physically come to the library for that. Just tell me the time and the place, and I will be there because that has to happen.
We gotta have Roddy on the opera.
Jeff, write that down, Jeff.
I'm writing it down on my spreadsheet.
No, you're not. I'm here in the room. You're not tippity tapping away on your phone.
So there will be an opera episode. No, actually, however, I don't even have to pantomime it because it already was on our spreadsheet because I have a second spreadsheet that has a podcast schedule. So
yes, but we're gonna make sure that Roddy is on it now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, your name came up like immediately because every time I just rewatched Amadeus, and whenever I hear Don Giovanni, I think about you because I know that you had to study it at school.
Yes, I actually wrote a paper on me and Don. Oh man, I'm so excited for this. I'm gonna go pull up that college essay I wrote. And then just I could ramble about books all day, just like any of us could, but oh my God, I'm so excited about this opera one. Other than that, I do have a lot of rereads on my TBR for next year, but they're very purposeful rereads. So I started reading the entire Witcher series right before the show came out, and I got all the way up to like the 5th book. And then just stopped reading it because that's a series and that's a lot. But I did want to finish it. And I tried to pick up one of the books and I was like, I think I'm going to need to start this all the way over. So one of my planned reads for this year is to reread what I've already read of the Witcher series and then finish it off. And then I keep telling myself that I'm going to finally reread this book because I love it so much, but it is an undertaking and a commitment. But I feel like this has to be the War and Peace year.
Yes, do it. And in like solidarity, I will reread the doorstopper that was formative for me as a 14-year-old, which is Les Miserables, which I have been meaning to reread for about 5 years now. And I have done it by haranguing Jeff into reading it for the first time.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read it along you, but I'm going to reread it in French, which I haven't actually done before.
Honestly, I might jump in on that because I've been really enjoying like reading things with my friends, but I just woke up one morning this year, so one morning within the past several days, and I was like, I miss Russian literature.
Yes.
Let's dive back into that.
Yes. Well,
I like pain, apparently.
We can even parallel play on that one while you're rereading War and Peace. Brothers Karamazov is one of my TBR books.
I'm literally staring at both of those books on my shelf right now.
Yeah. So this maybe is your War and Peace reread year and my Brothers K first read year. And Jeff, I do want to thank you for reading Les Miserables because I love buddy reading in solidarity. And also I've been meaning to read it in French for ages, and was initially going to reread it in English and then got annoyed. This is actually my Francophone origin story, is that when I was 14, I was annoyed that I couldn't just read what Victor Hugo wrote. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll have to get good enough at French to just read it. And that's mostly finally happened. So here we go.
So there's, as someone who hasn't read it but knows like a few things, this prattles on a lot about the sewer system.
Yeah, but it's important.
And so I only have to assume that when Javert jumps off a bridge, he winds up in the sewers?
No, the sewers precede the jumping off of a bridge.
Right, Roddy?
Mm-hmm.
In kind of a Pennywise It kind of way?
No, they probably fish him out. Of
Roddy?
No, you're not. No.
Is that why?
Just no.
No.
Okay.
But I will tell you that sewer lore is going to be a big deal
So
in
is the
2025.
Battle of Waterloo.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sewer lore. I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish that sentence. Who knows?
I was just saying,
Waterloo
like-
might be a key part of 2025 lore. The year hasn't happened yet.
Also, just really quickly on the Russian literature, probably Anna Karenina. I love mess sometimes, and reality TV doesn't do it for me, but that Russian literature sure gets it done.
It sure does. Well, and I've been meaning to read Anna Karenina for years, and all of my favorite parts of War and Peace are the messy ballroom parts, very closely followed by the existential, Pierre figuring out the meaning of life. And Anna Karenina is a lot fewer battles and a lot more ballroom mess.
Exactly.
And then some Levin figuring out the meaning of life. So it all balances out.
Yes. And listeners, none of this is a put on. These are two individuals in their late 20s who wake up one morning and say, boy, I should really read some 19th century Russian literature.
And you know what? It can be you too.
It can be you too.
This is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. As well as somebody who legitimately deeply enjoys pop media, your Bridgerton,
Sure,
your mass market romance
sure,
novels that I guess got big on TikTok.
Sure, Taylor Swift, Beyonce.
Taylor Swift, absolutely. Simultaneously, I've also been, as someone who's been watching a lot of filmed opera recently, hence why opera episode, I think that there is this idea, that certain types of art are only for certain types of people, and that's not necessarily true. Obviously, if opera doesn't resonate with you, don't watch it. But don't think, because of, I don't know, my class position or just what I know about art, this is something that's not available to me, is really probably a lot less true than you think. You too could become a person who wakes up and goes, gosh, I can't wait to watch The Marriage of Figaro after work tonight, or gosh, I really need to go read a bunch of Russian doorstoppers this year. The world is your oyster and the library is here to help you. I'm watching all this opera off of DVDs that I'm getting through interlibrary loan for free. And same deal with these big books,
Sure.
We've got them all here. Actually, I think Les Miserables is what's on my staff recommendations right now. So that's just, like I said, it's something I've been thinking about. It's something I just want to point out. Obviously, read what you like.
Sure.
But don't discount the fact that you might like something really long and old.
All right.
Yeah.
Some of the funniest memes in my life are out of War and Peace.
Okay. I have a handle joke that I'm going to save for the opera episode. Roddy, any other... You're going to just have to tune in. Roddy, any other thoughts or things we left unsaid?
No, I plan to read a lot of books this year, and hopefully it goes well this time.
Out of curiosity, so I had a pretty bad reading slump in the past year and read about 20 fewer books than usual. Did something similar happen to you?
Kind of yes, and kind of no. I always get this last minute surge towards the end of the year, and I got my hand on some manga, so that helped me get to the finish line. But it was looking pretty bleak through most of November, I will say.
I did not finish a single book in the month of November.
I'm trying to remember what my slowest... I think October was my busiest reading month this year, but I can't remember when was my slowest. I feel like several months were my slowest, but last year was a rough reading year. And then I decided to start out the year reading one of the most stressful books I've ever encountered. So I guess this is technically on my TBR, but it's called Diavola by, let me Google her name really quickly.
Okay, you can Google that, and then I'll ask Mary Graham.
Jennifer Thorne. Sorry, I found it that quickly.
Oh, no.
It is about the family vacation from hell. So, yeah.
No, I'm still going to say that handle joke. So, Roddy, always a pleasure. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we'll be in touch. You are on our list for the opera episode.
Yeah. I'm going to text Mary Graham literally after I get off this phone.
Okay. So, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, too. Bye.
Bye. It's first week of the year 2025, and joining us is Damon from the youth department, youth librarian. Damon, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good. I'm literally cold because I just stepped in.
You know what? It's freezing out there.
5 seconds ago. I still have my coat and my scarf on. Yeah. But what do we like to do when it's cold out? We like to read, get cozy and read. Damon, what are your plans for the year? What's on your list? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 older series that I have been getting into lately that I'm looking forward to continuing this year.
Okay.
So the first one was heavily inspired by this year's big musical feature, Wicked. Mm-hmm. So I read the first Wicked book way back when, a long time ago, but it's been enough years that it's time to revisit it.
Gregory Maguire?
Gregory Maguire, yep. What I didn't realize was I thought there was only 2, but there's actually 4 books in the series. Yeah, so amazing. I'm looking forward to reading those. I'm most of the way through the first one. It is a treasure.
The first one came out in the mid-90s, which is amazing. And so I have to imagine the fourth one came out also comparatively a while ago.
No. So the first one was 1995. You're absolutely correct about that. Book 2 was not until 2005.
Oh, my.
And so it was... or maybe 2004. Either way, it was early 2000s. 2 came around the time that Wicked was on stage for the first time. So yeah, no, it's great. So yeah, I'm reading those. I am in a much better place than the first time I was when I read them. There's a lot of adult content in there, absolutely, but it is wonderful, full of lots of queer characters and just really fun thoughts that are a little bit more relatable than maybe they should be these days. So, yeah.
It might be pretty surprising. You might find like new things that you're going to take away from it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%. The other series I'm working through comes from fellow coworker watched The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells for the longest time. So I finally said yes. Mm-hmm. We kind of have a deal going where she's reading the book that I want her to read. I'm reading the book she wants me to read. And then we talk about them. And it's really fun. It's like having a personalized book club with a good friend. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful. So I'm working through All Systems Red right now, which is the first one. But if you're not familiar with Murderbot, it is essentially a story about an android who works as a security device for humans who are doing research on another planet. Who all this android really wants to do is go back into their bedroom and just binge TV and find out what's happening in the latest serials that they want to catch up on.
Relatable.
It's incredibly relatable. They also hacked their own, like, they call it the governor module, but it's the way that they are controlled in order to be able to do what they want to do and call themselves Murderbot because why not?
Right. Now, Murderbot, sci-fi. Right? I mean, not to quibble on genres, right? But isn't that kind of where it's fitting? Almost like conventional sci-fi? Not...
It definitely...
like, genre often?
I have been coming into sci-fi more recently as I've gotten older. I think for the longest time, my impressions of sci-fi was... this is your typical cis hetero white male genre, and a lot of the old sci-fi writing does reflect that, and that's not exciting to me. What is exciting to me is when you take the genre and you take it to places where it's never been before, and you have fun things like this. So this one is, even though there is like all of the like science jargon going on in the background, the actual story is so compelling and the character is so fun just to hear their thought process. And it's great.
I've read it, and I don't usually read sci-fi, and I found this book incredibly approachable and not, well, fun isn't the right word, but like I enjoyed reading it a lot.
It's
you
also
know?
quite short, too.
Yes.
It's very accessible. The audiobook is something like
Accessible.
3 hours long.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'll probably finish it today, but good times.
Yes, Aaron has probably mentioned that book on this podcast 3 or 4 times already. So
Oh, I'm not surprised.
but okay, so again, to review, where are you currently in the Wicked series? Have you started?
I am Freak's book.
And how do you feel so far?
I am loving it so much more than the first time I read it. I am in a much better place for reading it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And who even knows what's going to be added to your list? This is only January, so
Yeah, I'm looking on Goodreads before I came in here, and I'm like, I need to call this list, but someday.
Thank you so much, Damon.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, look at these printouts.
I don't know the book yet, right? So I gotta.
Oh, sure. That is kind of a fun angle of this podcast, is that we actually don't know the books we're talking about yet.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be kind of one of the, well, I don't want to spoil it. I thought that was going to be one of the more interesting angles of this podcast, is you can only just make conjectures or who even knows. All right. So joining us now on the podcast is Michelle from the Adult Reference Department. Hey,
Hi, Jeff.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New year. Mm-hmm. Same me.
First week? No. Currently, maybe. Maybe the books you read will transform you in a way. Who knows?
Yeah.
So to be read, TBR. Like, what you brought to the table is probably what you're going to want to hopefully read personally too, just recreational.
Yeah. I'm definitely curious about both of these, and I'm quite sure that we will end up having them at the library at some
Excellent.
point this year. So
What's on your TBR?
yeah. So the first one is called "Who Deserves Your Love: How to Create Boundaries to Start, Strengthen, or End Any Relationship" by Casey Davis.
Okay.
And library users may know that name because she had an explosive hit with How to Keep House While Drowning, which was basically about her experience of being a new parent during the pandemic and how she had set up all this support and help, just kind of knowing, I think with her second child, that she had struggled with postpartum depression. And she's like, I'm ready. I'm going to have people coming in. I've got all these systems set in place. And then she had the child system in place. So
Sure.
she was drowning. Casey also has ADHD. So she talks about a lot of things come from that perspective. She's very neurodivergent friendly. She's got an autistic child. So, and people also may know her from TikTok. She's very big on TikTok. Her online name, and I believe the name of her podcast also, is Struggle Care.
Oh, excellent.
And I really, one of the messages that I really loved when I first heard of her was that care tasks are morally neutral. Right? Because a lot of times we have a lot of judgment, especially for women, about what your house looks like, how many dirty dishes are in the sink. So she's kind of taken all of the judgment out of that and said, these are morally neutral tasks that need to get done, and they can get done in whatever way works for your family.
Right.
She actually just had an article in the New York Times that was like, my house is messy and I don't care. But she talks about what she does care about. She cares about her children having a clear place on the counter to eat. She does not care that there's dirty dishes in the sink. She does not care about the crumbs on the floor.
Right.
So I love how she thinks. It's very logical. It's also for people who necessarily don't want to read a tome. I think that her books are really good for reading in little snippets here and there.
Who Deserves Your Love?
Yeah. So this book, the writing style is suited for those with ADHD, depression, or anyone. I think if you're just kind of feeling in a hole and you need a self-help book, she's a great one for that.
Yeah.
So the key topics, I guess, in this book are why conflict is intimacy, why the backbone to any relationship is the small moments, how to get healthy around your vulnerabilities, and how to avoid the trap of vulnerability cycle, how to establish basic standards in a relationship, and when to make value-based decisions in a relationship. So apparently she's got a decision tree in here that's very helpful too.
For sure.
I think if you're feeling overwhelmed, and I know with relationships sometimes that can be messy and mired, and I think I like the way Casey thinks because she kind of just lays things out, not maybe simply, but she gives you some guidance for how to think, is this abuse or is this just a messy part of my relationship? If it is abuse, so that can be very illogical and very emotional.
Sure. And value-based. And just that title alone, really not even cracking it open, I'm just making a prediction, seems like it's going to be leaning into the self-worth angle, perhaps, which is important in our relationships.
Yes. So Neko Case has a memoir coming out this year. I know that I'm sure, are familiar with Neko Case, singer-songwriter.
New pornographers. And a solo artist.
Fantastic solo work. So her memoir is called The Harder I Fight, The More I Love You. It's a sweet and sour study of a songwriter's coming of age.
Nice.
So if you haven't listened to Neko Case before, I highly recommend you do. But her lyrics are so evocative, right? And her voice is so powerful. So I'm really curious to see how this translates into a book. I bet it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And she is coming of age in an interesting time. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
So it's like post-Madonna, it's post-Courtney Love, it's pre-Taylor Gaga. So it's an interesting little pocket when new pornographers was on the rise. So.
Yeah, I would say that women or people who enjoyed all fours, if we're in that perimenopausal fiction, literary memoir, whatever, this place, if that's where you are, I think if you enjoyed all fours, this would be a great follow-up as far as a nonfiction.
Nice.
It talks about how the trauma of her childhood. So I would say definitely if you've got, there's I think a trigger warning for some sexual assault or drug use in here. Sure. It says when she was in second grade, she was told that cancer had killed her mother, who then returned home a year and a half later, apparently cured.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, definitely some like Gen X, latchkey trauma here.
Sure.
But the thing that I'm really looking forward to is her writing. Here's just a few phrases I think that she uses in the memoir. Her parents started out poor as empty acorns.
Wow.
And they drove a car that looked like a nauseous basking shark.
Wow.
During winters in Chicago, where her career took off, she felt the wind hammering in like a bouquet of cold fists.
Oof.
And at a sound check, her voice sounded like it's being piped through a thrift store whale's carcass into a pirate's wet diaper.
Oh,
I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to read that? So, yeah, I'm super excited. She's got a powerful voice vocally, and it looks like a very powerful voice in the written word as well.
And I see a third one on the table. Nobody's Empire?
Yeah, well, staying with the musician angle here, this is Stuart Murdoch from Belle and Sebastian, and he's writing a novel.
Wow.
And I see here, I believe this is from Kirkus, it says Murdoch proves he's as good of a novelist as he is a musician, which bodes very well for us.
Nobody's Empire.
Excellent musician. It's about the narrator's named Stephen. He's got CFS, kind of chronic fatigue syndrome. He's in Scotland, not living his best life. Obviously that's a difficult chronic condition. And so he ends up going with a couple of friends to California, trying to just perk up their health and their lives. And I think it's a novel where not a lot happens, but I think it sounds very lyrical, and it's very much, if you're into transcendent moments, it's going to be that kind of a book. So
I'm here for that.
I'm very excited about that. And if I could just do one
more
honorable mention, I know we all love Samin NosratThe, who did Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat a few years ago. She's been working on her new cookbook, Good Things, Recipes and Rituals to Share with the People You Love. It's not coming out till September, but I know so many people are going to be very excited because we love Samin. So she's got a new cookbook coming out this year. Yay.
Just in time for the Burr months.
Yes.
When we're getting back into our kitchen and cooking more and baking more.
Right.
What was the title of that one more time?
It's going to be called Good Things.
Good Things.
Yeah.
Wow. Great picks all around. And my college music listening self is so excited that two of my key musicians that I was listening to at that time are putting out books in the next, very soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Stuff to look forward to for sure. I want to say that Neko Cases is coming out at the end of January.
Excellent.
So really soon. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Sorry, it's a little dark in here.
That's okay. I can still see.
Lamp is not dead, but I'll fix it soon.
Okay.
You know what's funny is that this is a podcast about TBR lists. List being like an operative word, and you're the second person to bring in a sticky note, which is great as far as actual lists.
Well, if I don't write it down, I will forget all the important information.
Sure. Joining us now is Melissa, head of circulation. Hey, Melissa.
Hey,
How are you?
good.
So, what's on your list?
All right, so I got a couple things on my TBR list that I'm seriously looking forward to next year. The first one I actually already have pre-ordered. It's the third book in the Emily Wilde series,
Okay.
Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett.
Okay.
Love the series so far.
What's the genre? What's the vibe?
It's definitely a fantasy.
Okay.
The vibe is kind of cute and cozy,
Okay.
but it's an interesting take on the fantasy series. It's written as journal entries. The main character is an academic studying the different species of fairies, and is writing it as like her take on everything she's coming across. So it's a little bit of almost like an academic study, but it's also her personal journals as she's kind of learning new things and moving through this world and experiencing different takes.
She's meeting fairies, interacting with them, maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
meeting them, interacting them, but also almost like socioanthropology
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah, because I'm
like,
sure the fairies are flying up to her and talking to her and telling her.
And it's
about
not
their-
just small fairies. Like it's fairies as in fairy,
Sure.
as in like the larger one. So any species involved with fairy.
FAER.
But all of them. So, different species and how they live and how they interact. And of course, getting herself into trouble
Okay.
as one does.
This is the third book?
This is the third
Okay.
book.
And then do they just is that just kind of the vibe? They just keep hanging out? Or is there like a.
She keeps hanging out studying things. So there's a little bit of a romance element, but
Okay.
it's not a main plot point of the book. It's there.
No peril or anything? Nothing? No.
Usually some peril.
Okay, some peril.
Usually some
Okay.
peril. She gets herself into some sticky situations
Okay.
that she has to figure out how to get out of.
Cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, and I've enjoyed them so far. The first one's the Encyclopedia of Fairies.
Okay. And
Great
the
series so
author
far.
again?
Heather Fawcett.
Excellent. All right. What else is on your sticky note?
The second one is coming out in July. It's actually the follow-up to one of my favorite of 2024. It's The Enchanted Greenhouse.
Okay.
It's the second book. The first one was The Spell Shop.
Okay.
Again, kind of cute, cozy little series. I have no idea what this one's about other than apparently an enchanted greenhouse.
The author?
The author, Sarah Beth Durst.
Okay. I imagine, again, people hanging out maybe?
People hanging out.
Low stakes, low peril.
Yes, low stakes, low peril in the series for sure. Again, the first one had a little romance, but again, not a major plot point of the book. But I mean, it's kind of, again, cute, cozy fantasy, quick read, kind of low stakes. Really, I said, enjoyed the first one, so I'm really looking forward to the follow-up and see where it goes.
Do you think, just side question, do you occasionally read outside of that sort of subgenre niche of the cozy genre? Or do you like to stay in there?
I usually do.
Okay.
These have just been kind of my recent.
Okay.
Got a little burnt out in grad school. So I've been kind of listening to and reading more quicker books, a little lower stakes.
Yeah.
It's just been where I've wanted to read lately.
Good for your brain.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a nice palate cleanser after reading some heavier texts that I'm, reading for work and after grad school and everything.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Melissa.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
spooky, not spooky,
No, it's cozy.
cozy lighting.
It's cozy room for a cozy new year.
Yes.
For a cozy 2025.
Yes.
With some not cozy bookstery.
We're going to, not cozy?
Jeff, I don't like cozy books.
Oh my gosh. It's so fitting that you're following up Melissa's picks of nothing but cozy books. So this is like going from Melissa's jacuzzi into your like freezing cold pool.
It's not that bad. I didn't put any of my murder books on here.
Okay.
This time.
Okay, good. Okay, joining us from the youth department, it's Erin. Hey, Erin.
Hi.
Hello. So tell us about your books.
Alrighty. So I have 2 that I'm looking forward to.
Listeners should know that she also brought a sticky note. So
I'm really bad with remembering names in general, so I have to have a sticky note.
Great.
Notes are important. So the first one is Queen Demon. It is going to be the sequel to another one of Martha Wells' fantasy novels.
Okay. So this is separate from the Murderbot.
Yes.
Okay.
Listeners of the pod know that I love Martha Wells' Murderbot series. But I don't know if I've talked about so much before some of the fantasy books that she's done. Book 1 was called The Witch King. Super good. Loved it. Had some great world building. Had some interesting magic. There's demons. There's angels. There's a lot of talk about like morality and what means to be good, and like a lot of good character fluidity and lots of great representation. And so I'm very excited about this new one because I think it's going to be following a different one of the characters that we saw and had a good role in the first book. But I think maybe we're going to see a lot more of this character. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What is the vibe? Are people going on adventures? Is there an overarching evil? Is there a quest? What's driving it, I guess? Or is it just like world building?
So book 1 was very much a little bit of a fantasy thriller meets a little bit of a whodunit. It had 2 alternating timelines because it starts with the main character Kai like waking up and being like, whoa, who tried basically to murder me? And
we don't want to wake up to that, but
no, it's kind of rude but so it's flashing back between a whole bunch of time ago when they were setting up this kingdom and modern timeline where they're trying to figure out like who's trying to stop this giant alliance from happening and who also did this to Kai and what's going on with that, and it's all connected and there's some political motivations, and so it's definitely there's a lot of action in it. There's definitely a little bit of politicking, fantasy politics going on, but not a lot. Not as much as like you get in like an Anne Leckie sci-fi novel. Just like a smidgen. It's more about characters, and we see like where they're coming from and their motivations, and you're trying to figure out, okay, who did this? Where are we going? What's the motivation behind the crime? Kind of thing.
Great. And you have a second book.
Yes. My second one is actually a sci-fi one. I know. Shocker. Is going to be the new John Scalzi book. Okay. Which is When the Moon Hits Your Eye.
Like a big pizza pie?
Yes, kind of.
Great.
So if you're familiar with Scalzi work at all, there's always a little bit of like irreverent humor to them, which I really appreciate.
Star Trek fans can go find red shirts.
Oh yes, that was actually my first peek into the Scalzi realms of books, and it was really funny and delightful. And there's like one where he has like an evil like society kind of a deal with really smart, intelligent cats, which is also good, and a kaiju society one that's really good. This one is going to be kind of like an episodic, different people, characters takes on the moon being made out of cheese.
Okay, love it.
So
which we all know it is.
Most definitely. What kind of cheese do you think it is?
I mean, I don't know. Probably blue cheese, right?
Really?
Yeah, what do you think?
I always assumed it was going to be something closer to like a cheddar.
Okay.
Because I think it's got to be like a harder cheese to not fall apart in space.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Like maybe like a white kind of cheddar. Yeah.
Cheese is disgusting.
I don't like cheese that much either.
Okay.
But
You were saying.
But I would like this book, I think.
Yes.
Because it has a lot of promise to do what Scalzi normally brings to the table, which is it's going to be dealing with a lot of serious things dealt in a not so serious nonsense kind of way. And at one point you're like, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart. But then it all kind of comes together in a kind of a delightful, like, you don't see it the moment that it all comes together until the moment it all comes together. And then those things that you saw earlier, they're like, oh, well, that's just a random little factor. That's just a little funny aside. Everything comes together. I really enjoy when you get those moments in books.
Yes. So review the titles again.
Was talking about was When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. And my other pick was Queen Demon by Martha Wells.
And the next suspenseful question is, which one do you think you'll get your hands on first? Gasp, ellipsis.
It's going to all depend on if I feel like doing a fantasy or a sci-fi book.
Oh, wow.
So it's a 50-50 toss-up. We'll have to
and
flip
you just
a coin.
don't even know where you'll be at that moment.
Who can say?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll probably be in the middle of reading something else and just be like, oh.
Yeah.
So you'll find out when I find out.
All right. Report back. Thank you, Erin.
Thanks.
And that was Erin from the youth department that we just heard from. And what a lineup, especially so great to hear from Roddy. Glad she could call in. I think that was a surprise for Mary Graham. I actually did not tell you that was happening.
I'm very, very pleased about it.
And as I said, in the show notes, you'll find the full list of the books that we're going to read. But also, hey, just walk into your library and say, just chat with your librarian, right, Mary Graham?
Dear God, please. I love when people come up.
What are you reading lately?
And say, no one ever asks me.
You should. Let's start that.
I think maybe once someone has asked me and we got into an amazing conversation about it.
Yeah.
And certainly with, even if you're thinking like, well, but Mary Graham, you work back in youth and I am grown. First of all, adults can enjoy some children's novels. And also, we do read other things.
Yes.
Yeah, please. And come tell us about what you're reading or come say, hey, I don't know. I just want a good book. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. That is my favorite type of question to answer.
Yeah.
And you'll have this full list in the show notes to add to your actual list if you're that type of person.
Right.
Or like me to nebulously go, oh, that sounds good. I'll get around to it someday.
Yeah. And, you could also just always, of course, classically come in with like a vague idea or a vague description of a book that you have heard. Maybe you just weren't paying attention to this podcast. I'm not judging you. Just come in and give our librarians kind of a vague description and they will hunt it down because that's what they do.
It's our superpower.
It is. You've listened to another episode of A Little Too Quiet. Thanks for listening, everybody. Joined as always by Mary Graham.
Bye-bye.
And I'm Jeff, and the Friends of the Ferndale Library made this podcast a reality. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to ferndalefriends.org. I would recommend, and Mary Graham would recommend, joining them.
Yes.
Supporting them, saying hi to them.
They're awesome.
Come
be our friend.
Yeah. And even if you're not in Ferndale, go to your local library.
Join your local friends.
Join the local friends. Say hi to your librarians, all that stuff. And rate and review and subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. It would help us find more listeners. We'll be back next week with more. Thanks for listening. It's, how about this? Why did Handel have to cancel his Netflix subscription?
Why?
Because he was Baroque as hell.
That's genuinely very good.
Good. Okay, great. Tell the world.